Okay, back again. Had to respond to a phone call. Okay, got the paper here. When I cut these things, I never measure them, but it looks straight enough. Trim it up a little bit when we're done. That pretty well finishes off this roll. So this is 4 feet by 12 feet. And this is pretty much what's left over. You could probably cut that into smaller sheets if I wanted to, but I've got sketch pads that function the same way, so might not use this for anything. Just throw it away. Let's break out a new pen. Right here from the dear old Sharpies. You know, I don't think Sharpie has as toxic a stuff in it as it used to. Because the last one, I didn't smell anything at all. It just says if it doesn't perform properly, return it. Okay. No, it doesn't really say anything about it. Just that it meets the, whatever it is, AC, I can't even see that, ACML or MT. Okay, so much for that. Now, where do we start? Some people, when they look at a blank piece of paper, see it as a daunting task. And a big blank piece of paper can be like that sometimes too. But we'll just, okay, we started. So anywhere you go, you just want to kind of start doing stuff. Serpentine stuff is kind of the way most, noisy motorcycle out there, the way most people do these things, but I have to say sometimes to like angular things, you know what I mean? So we'll put stuff like this in here. Ooh, there we go. That's angular already. Not sure what we're going to do with all that. And then sometimes it's nice to put faces in. I like putting faces in, so just put a person here who is looking askance in there. Eyes are so easy to draw. Yeah, I mean, and they add such a dramatic element. I think I discussed that or talked about that rather in the last video, the last drawing, you know, about how we think of eyes and how they've become such a huge part of our experience from the time we were infants. And I do believe that. Let's put a mouth in here. This guy seems a little bit on the glad side to be here. Anyway, it's adequate enough for what we're going to be doing. Colors and stuff there. I haven't gone to the store and gotten that big marker with the chisel chip yet. I might, when I hit the brake on this thing, that's what I might do. I might go to the store and pick up some stuff. I don't know which one to go to now, the art store or Staples, because Michael's is right next to him. Michael's is an okay store. I mean, it's not as comprehensive as I'd like to see, but then I'm using stuff that comes right out of Staples, so it really doesn't need to be too sophisticated anyway. You know, I think there's something challenging and interesting about simplifying materials, and you can go out and buy yourself, really expensive stuff, a nice complete set of Prismacolor color pencils, or oil pastels, or nice dip pens, and a whole variety of sophisticated ink, really good quality India ink and things like that. Or you can just use ballpoint pens. I'll show you. Hold on for a minute. Some of my sketching. All of these are done with ballpoint pens. Like this landscape here, except, of course, obviously the white pen, which is actually just a white gel pen. And no more sophisticated than a Bic ballpoint pen, which used to be 19 cents when I was younger. 19 cents Bic pen, so I used to advertise them on TV. These are fairly, I kind of intrigued by this one here. I thought that's pretty cool with the, I don't know how well this webcam decides, I don't know how it decides where to focus. It's seeing me, but the flat paper seems to be tricking it a little bit. Anyway, which one is the new pen? This one? Yeah. So we've got a guy, looks like he's stuck in a bubble or something like that. So let's put a whole bunch of eyes right here. That'd be kind of cool. Yeah. Just kind of go up like this. It'd be like the eye that's in that pyramid on our currency. Who carries currency around with them anymore? Everybody uses debit cards. I've never done engraving, which always seems like just a mind-boggling process to me. I mean, I could take a course in doing that. Might be interesting. I mean, I've done etching, which is an intaglio process. But etching is a little bit different. It's a little freer than engraving. Engraving, like what we see on our money, is, or gravure, I guess they call that, the process, is, it seems to require an enormous amount of control. I mean, there's a book. I'll go get the book and show you pictures. Hold on. Okay, I can find it. I thought you were in trouble as well. Well, not sure where the book is. Oh, sorry. Here it is. This is the Divine Comedy by Dante, obviously, but illustrated by Gustave Doré, who was a 19th century artist who did not only paintings, but he did predominantly engraving. This book is really old, my mom and dad's. But you can see the quality of the gravure or the engraving. Although I can tell you what, the quality is not showing up. But I mean, and they were, this this book was seminal for me when I was a kid because I'd look at it a lot, primarily because I like the naked women, but also it's such a dramatic tale, and the illustrations are just spectacular. I think there are two great renditions of the Divine Comedy, according to what I understand about it. One of them is Gustave Doré, and the other is Robert Rauschenberg. And I don't happen to have a book of Rauschenberg's, but he used, at that time, what would be considered contemporary imagery to illustrate the Divine Comedy. I mean, if you're familiar with Rauschenberg's work, he's I would call him, he used to call some of his works combines. He composed work out of almost materials that ordinarily would not go together. And he also used imagery that would not go together, which is kind of similar to what I'm doing here with just a simple pen. But he would do it with silk screens and paint, oil paint, and he would also add absolute crazy elements like stuffed birds and stuff like that into his picture. I guess probably his most outrageous piece was a piece called Monogram, which had a goat with a tire. Actually, I've got a picture of that. A goat with a tire around its middle, which is very strange in the painting set, on the floor flat, as opposed to Berkeley on the wall. And whereas this is the parts book here. Wow. It's nice when you get rid of a lot of stuff because then you don't have to, you can find stuff real quick. There is an example of one of his paintings. Of course, this is in black and white and the painting is in color, but those are silk screens. He also had another technique where he did rubbings, and he would take newsprint and he would lay the paper down over top. This is my understanding, and you use like lighter fluid or something like that, and then you'd rub on the paper, and the ink would transfer onto the drawing that you're doing the rubbing. I guess like what you would do with a gravestone rubbing, and then he could transfer that image up to his canvas or whatever material he was working on. And this daggone book is not in any type of order, so finding Monogram might be a lot of problems. I thought it was in this book, but let me look and see. Well, I'm sorry to say, but I don't know if it's in here. Might not be. But you can Google it. You'll find it online. Yeah, it's called Monogram. Just look up Robert Rauschenberg. And I'm sure a lot of people watching, if there are any, already know or are already familiar with Rauschenberg's work. And he's part of that 50s conglomerate of artists like Jasper Johns and the choreographer Maurice Cunningham, and, the composer, jeez, I forgot his name. That's terrible. All right, there's a little stack of eyes right there. I can put some regular shapes going on in here if we want. It's interesting when you do these things. I mean, it doesn't really get tied together until you've been at it for a while. I guess that's that get acquainted period, which was one of those. The composer's name is John Cage. It slipped my mind for a minute. I actually met him one time. It's kind of interesting. He gave a performance at the Smithsonian downtown, and it was for his 60th birthday, and this was back in the 70s when he was 60 years old. He's, of course, long gone now. And went to the performance, which was interesting. He did strange things to pianos, like he just jammed things in around the strings and everything, so that you would get entirely different sounds. And he would also do very strange things with poetry, where he would take literature and he'd cut words out and cut out letters, stuff like that, and he'd just rearrange them, which is very much like the Dadaists did, in the turn of the century and everything. But I mean, and a woman got up there and recited some of the poetry, and he plunked on the piano, which sounded very bizarre. And then afterwards, there was a birthday party, because it was his 60th birthday, and we had cake and, I don't know, fruit punch, I guess, or something like that. And it was pretty neat. I mean, he was a very humble, quiet, unassuming man. He was tall, and very pleasant. Shook his hand and said hi, and I didn't really have any overwhelmingly intellectual remarks to say to him or questions to ask at the time. Quite frankly, a little intimidated by anybody of that stature in the art world. But can you see what I'm doing? I'm on the way. And it was a fun experience, I have to admit. And I actually, somewhere, I've got a CD of a bunch of recordings of his that are pretty interesting to listen to, really. I mean, it's questionable if you could call it music, quite frankly. I mean, I guess you could just call it a collection of sounds, which, I mean, that's what music is. But music is more than that. Music has a structure to it. It adheres to certain, tones that are at certain even increments, one from the other, to create a scale and all the other stuff. So, I mean, music is slightly different. But, I mean, Rauschenberg was, Cage was part of that avant-garde that just experimented with everything imaginable when it came to what you can make art out of. And I think that mentality still is prevalent today, immensely prevalent. In fact, if anything of the artists from that era, it is that aspect of art that seems to have, at least this is in my opinion, you can deal with an art historian, they might say you're full of learning. But in my estimation, that's kind of like how I see it. And I find it fascinating. I mean, you go into any major venue, like I go to the Hirshhorn a lot in Washington, D.C., and, a lot of work is done digitally nowadays, which is very interesting. And I also notice another thing is that photography has kind of taken over quite a bit from painting, and also video. You see a lot of the exhibits, well, I won't say most, but so many of the exhibits are, videos and photography. And it's pretty interesting. I mean, let's face it, that's how the images that we are getting to know the world by are communicated to us. And painting has taken, which used to be the big leader, is taken somewhat of a back seat to the other media, which is certainly okay with me. I mean, I think for each and every individual, they should just do whatever they really feel like doing, and don't even worry about where your position is in the world. I mean, it's intellectualizing what you're trying to do way too much, and it's not necessary. I always liked the sculpture of, his name was John Chamberlain, where he would, he'd go to a junkyard and he would look for parts from junked cars, like a door, fenders, you know, whatever he could get his hands on his manual, he could throw into his vehicle. I don't know what that would be. I think he had a van. And he'd take them home and he would bend them up a little bit more, get crinkles and you know, and crinkles and, you know, misshapen dents and stuff like that throughout the metal. Most of the time it was always something in metal. And he would weld these parts together into, and a lot of times these sculptures are pretty large, really. I mean, they could stand maybe this high off the floor and be, you know, whatever. And they would, then he would, a lot of times after he's welded the things together, which looked very much like an abstract painting, except now in three-dimensional, he would spray paint areas around it to, you know, add interest and, you know, turn it into a final work of art, final work of sculpture. And I always found, I remember watching, I don't know where I saw it on TV, because it was long before cable. And I think it was long before public TV. So I don't know where I saw it, but it was a short film about him and with him, narrated, you know, and interviewed, and it was fantastic. It was really, really interesting to see how he related to what he was doing, and to see his method, to see how he went about the process of making these things, how he, you know, decided which chunks of junked metal were worthy of carrying further into what he was conceiving in his mind, or suggesting to him, you know, whatever. And let's put a building in. We need a building in here. And it was a great program. There used to be a lot of things like that on TV back in the when I was younger. I saw one on Robert Irving. It's Irving or Irving? I think it's Irving. And I believe he's still alive too, because I saw a show of his was it last year or the year before, I think, at the Hirshhorn, and he deals with light and transparency and the ethereal aspects of material. And his pieces are very large, and a lot of times they have veils, you know, that are semi-translucent, transparent rather. You can look through them and see other objects on the other side and everything. He has a very premeditated attitude towards what he's doing. It's very conceptual, and his stuff is really fun to look at. And if you feel like Googling, make sure I'm spelling his name right. Actually, I can do that on my cell phone. Let me see. I would recommend him. I'm low on space. Okay. That's the way life is sometimes. All right. Robert, what's his name be? Richard. Robert, Robert Goodenough. That was the last guy I looked up. That was an interesting painter. Very much a cubist. Okay, Robert Irving. Irving. All right, but artist, that's a pretty common name, so you're going to get a lot of Robert Irvings. Irwin, sorry, my bad. Born in 1928, still around. Robert Irwin. And if you're happen to live in an area where you get major art shows, and you can go to them, and he happens to have a retrospective or maybe current work or something like that, I really recommend going and seeing his things because they're pretty good. I mean, you know, that whole era that was such a, you know, the area of like the late 50s or early 60s, pop art, Andy Warhol, Jasper Johns, and, you know, not that, Johns is not really a pop artist, nor is Rauschenberg, but I mean, you're loosely associated with them. And it was just, I don't know, just an incredibly liberating time for art, in my opinion. You know, maybe I'm just being an old nostalgic fuddy-duddy, and it could very easily be the case. You know, not one of those people that always say, "Oh, everything was so much better back when I was younger." You know, I don't buy that bullshit at all. You know, I hear people say it all the time. When we were young, we rode on bikes without helmets, and we did all sorts of stuff. Yeah, that's true. And we also wound up in the hospital probably more often, and probably got hurt more times. You know, so I mean, you know, this kind of somehow that, you know, the past was better than the present is bullshit. And I hate hearing those types. I see it on Facebook all the time. I really hate reading that mentality. You know, well, we drank out of the garden hose. You know, we did blah 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 blah. You know, we didn't wash our hands when we ate or something like that. Something really ridiculous. And we're still here, and you're goddamn lucky too. And I think people now, you know, younger people particularly, they're so much more worldly than I was, and my generation was when we were kids. We didn't, I think because of the information age, younger people just have a better grasp and a better understanding of things, and are better educated. And I think they have their fair share of hardships. And I think, you know, to come down on them saying, you know, you haven't suffered enough or anything like that is wrong. And I think the world is very difficult for younger people. And I empathize completely with them. And I don't see anything particularly redeeming about my generation. You know, sorry, it's just how I see it. You know, older people out there might have issue with that and numbers, and of course you're certainly entitled to your opinions, and I can be 100% wrong anyway, so it doesn't matter. You know, I mean, I happen to share the exact same birthday with Prince Charles of England, which by itself means absolutely nothing. But, you know, I've always found that kind of fascinating that he was born November 14th, 1948, just like me. And it'd be neat to meet him one day, you know? I mean, when he was, how old? When he was 60, what's the old Beatles song? When I'm 65, or 64, or something like that. Anyway, when he was that, he invited all these people who were born on that day, November 14th. It didn't matter if it was 1948. And I didn't get an invite. And it's like, well, dude, come on. And they weren't people from England. They were people from all over the place. And he was at the time, I think he was in New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, or something like that. And had his birthday party there. And so I sent a little message to his Facebook page, which probably has now got me under the scrutiny of the British Secret Police or whatever. But I said, you know, really sorry I couldn't make your party this year. Hope you're having a good time. Maybe next year I can make it. Give my regards to your mom, the Queen. And I left it at that. And of course, I didn't get any response back to that. I'm sure they looked at me and said, what is this? Who's this idiot? And so I'm still waiting for Prince Charles to give me an email someday, or a Facebook nod, or a tweet, or some such stuff. I just started Twitter. I did Twitter in order, I don't know how to do Twitter, I just happened to have joined it. And so that I can start promoting this, so that, you know, people watch. I hope people watch, because I hope they enjoy it and find it interesting and fun to do. You know, and I hope that my conversations are at least interesting enough to keep your attention. They might not be. I don't always talk about specifically what I'm drawing, because this is not an instructional sort of video. I think it is a compilation of miscellaneous ramblings that just pop into my head while I work, and I just share them. You know, I mean, I just, another way of saying that is I run my mouth. And you'll find that I'm clearing my throat a lot, because I'm not used to talking this much. I mean, I live by myself, and it's quiet in here most of the time. And, I might go all day without saying a word. It's kind of weird, you know, except if I go to the grocery store, it's a hi, blah, blah, blah. I know everybody in there, and I like being social. There's no question about that. And so anyway, that's what this is all about. Let's turn this into some sort of thing like it's heating up or something, you know. And then it's getting hot on the tip, it's burning, and all the other stuff goes with that. It's always a series of contours, and then a matter of shading to give it some sort of dimension, or at least some sort of interest. Now, we're going to repeat a little bit of what I did in the other drawing by putting a big lifesaver in the middle of the picture, which kind of, I'm not thinking composition, but I can't avoid noticing it when I look at it afterwards. It is kind of unifies the center of the images quite a bit. And we could put another dude with a fedora in there, but let's put a guy with a Roman helmet on. You know? You don't see those too much. You know? I don't even know what they look like. What do they look like? Oh my gosh. Uh-oh, I'm out of room. Oh, too bad. Now I don't have room for the big plume. I always thought those helmets were so cool. When I saw the movie as a kid, I guess it was Ben-Hur, and there were a lot of those kind of biblical themed movies back in the 50s, like Samson, The Ten Commandments, and Ben-Hur, and I'm sure there's others, The Robe, and I'm sure there were others. There were epics, cast of thousands. They always build a cast of thousands. And Ben-Hur is pretty spectacular. Oh, I could take up. Pretty spectacular movie for sure. And one of the best chariot race scenes I think I've ever seen. Maybe the only one I've ever seen, now that I think about it. Can't imagine what it must have been like living at that era. At any moment some army is going to just march on you and come in and kill half your people, which is not funny, and subjugate you to their rule, that type of thing. I don't begrudge anything about the Roman Empire. It was certainly long enough time ago. And I'm part Italian anyway, so I guess there must be some sort of connection there. But I just, on a very kind of simplistic point, I just liked it from a child's viewpoint, that I thought the uniforms were pretty cool, the armaments and all the other stuff. When you're a kid, you're into all that stuff, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, man, it's so cool. I want to go out and play Roman soldier today. I'm going to go get my plastic sword that I got at McCrory's store, or at the Head Company or something like that, and the little funky helmet, all that stuff. Let's go out and be conquerors of the Mediterranean. This guy looks definitely weird. We need some other things in here for sure. Kind of pick this up a bit. I gotta take a break for just a second. Oh, every time I start it, if I stop it, I've created another video. Oh, that stinks. Well, I've run 36 minutes on this one. I haven't gotten very far. I'll run it up to 40 minutes here before I take a break and break this and that. I don't want to have it into 5 different parts or something like that. That's too much. And like I say, I want to do, are you all seeing all right? I want to, I can go over here. I want to do time lapse, which I think the computer will actually do. But I'm getting to look at the images in there, and they're not really as sharp as I want them to be. So I think I'm going to look into a camera. Actually, if anybody wants to in the comments suggest something, a camera that they've used that they think is really good, first rate, that's not too expensive, I'm all ears. Let me know. I'll go out and check that out. Best Buy is just right up the street. There's a lot of places to get things. Walmart's right up the street. Target's right up the street. I'm not hurting for convenience, that's for sure. Staples is right up the street. Michael's. Kohl's. Like this fry. I don't know where I got this. I guess I had it at Target. It's made out of paper. There's a German artist to get back to the theme of expressionism, which seems to just dominate my brain. Anselm Kiefer, I think is how you pronounce his name. I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce it. And he does these really interesting pieces where he'll use like such a heavy encrusted amount of possible, it's not even paint, it's, I forget what the materials are, but I mean the pieces are huge, they're absolutely huge, they're bigger than the place I live in, which is not very big. And he works with these great big spatulas or whatever you want to call them. I think they're actually made for making cakes or something. I don't know. The metal blade is like this long, and has a handle. And he does it, you know, like this. It, you know, with just smearing the stuff on, and then as it starts to set up, he'll go in and he'll dig out parts, you know, and pop it off, and he'll do like you know, like maybe some very strange exotic looking plants that are growing up like sunflowers, you know, or he did an airplane, which was really interesting because it had like, it was made out of like, I guess the material was some form of lead. And it's about, I don't know, maybe about 15, 20 feet long maybe, and, you know, from on the fuselage. And the engines have got like weeds stuck in it and coming out and everything. Like it's almost like like an archaeological find, you know. Like if somebody was to come back from in the future, you know, 20,000 years and come back to this age, and they'd find this old plane lying somewhere where, you know, the Earth had started to try to reclaim it. His stuff has that type of feel to it, and. He has one he calls Zimzoon, I think that's the name of it. I forget. I might not be saying that right. I might be saying it backwards, for that matter. And I mean, these are two that are in the Hirshhorn. In fact, he's collected in all the major museums. It seems like in the United States, they always seem to have a Kiefer in there. And it has this big book, like a Bible, that's sticking out from this like plated wall that's just like streaks and stuff. It's just incredible. And the thing is, all the pages are crusted and corroded and everything, and they're really fascinating pieces. You know, I mean, the artist is really an interesting guy. He's still alive. You can look him up. Unfortunately, I don't know how to spell his name. Let me check that out for you. Isn't it great that we have all this information at our fingertips? I could correct Robert Irving to Robert Irving, just like that. Okay, Anselm. Here it is, Anselm Kiefer, Anselm Kiefer, K-I-E-F-E-R, Kiefer. And this might be pretty dumb showing you just over a cell phone, but you can see some of the things that he does. And they're always large, and they're always fun to look at. And if you like me, who likes looking at a lot of art, you probably would enjoy seeing his things. You can just Google it and take a look at them on Google. That's a wonderful thing, wonderful aspect about Google is we have just about everything we want at our fingertips these days, which is pretty handy for us. We need some more repetitive stuff. It's getting old. Let's put some good old round circles in. I always like circles. I always like marbles or, you know, little dough balls or pearls or basketballs or something. I didn't think of it basketball. Any of that kind of stuff. You know, casting those shadows like they're on the surrealistic plane. It's always fascinating to me with Dali's paintings how so often, not always, but so often, Romans never had beards that I remember. I don't think I've ever seen a Roman with a beard. Clean shaven dudes. They're also, most all of them knew how to read and write. It was a big deal in the Roman Empire, although they were pretty harsh on people, period. And they had a caste system, you know, where you, if you weren't part of it, you were crap. And got what I was saying from the train. Anyway, there's a really awkward looking, let's put a big eyeball right over here. I need a big one. I think we need some automobiles in here too. Maybe a train or an airplane or something like that. They're a combination of really strange elements together. Actually, I guess they're not so strange. To highlight it. I don't know what type of work people watching do. Perhaps they do stuff like this. Doing these type of drawings are really enjoyable to do. I haven't tried shutting my eyes, and I'm working on this yet. I'll do that in the next one. I could do a little bit of it now in this one if I wanted to. But, we'll leave that how it is. I think I won't do that right now. My Roman soldier, ready to fight the, I don't know who they fought. Ready to fight the Carthaginians, whoever. The empire is stretched, I guess, all through the Mediterranean, all through Europe. Still has influences on us today, especially in our language. And in our government to a certain degree. And then they had a Senate, and they would consider themselves a republic, and blah, 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 and all the other stuff. Really, they were just a dictatorship. But, you know, it's a fancy way to express them, I guess. Let's put some straight things in, right? Straight things in here. Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm not real satisfied with the space, but it'll do. I mean, they don't have to be, they can be weird looking. This one's pretty weird. I mean, sometimes you just kind of go crazy about it. Put a big long nose like this, and then you just kind of drop down right over here, and then put the mouth way the hell over here. There's a movie I remember seeing. What was that daggone movie called? It wasn't The Mouse That Roared, but I don't know, I'm drawing blanks today. My memory's not working too good. Somebody's smiling over here. And you can owl. You can, I'm going to Picasso, we'll put an eye over here maybe. And we can put another one way over here. And we'll put the ear over here, you know, be like a Mr. Potato Head. Just kind of mix them all up. It's going to be challenging to tie all this together to make it into some sort of interesting composition, because these are some pretty diverse elements that are going on, and they definitely don't seem to go together very well at all, which is fine with me. The more conflict, the better. All right, I'm going to cut this one at this point because we've gone 49 minutes. That's pretty long for a start. So I will see you in the next one, and that'll be part dos, and we will continue on. Okay, see you in a bit.